Welcome to our leadership journey. We are Mike Cloutier and Peter Yanuszewski, and our goal is to interview people leaders at different stages of their career, from frontline managers to CEOs, and extract the leadership lessons they've learned on their journey to help you become a better leader. On this episode, we chat with the outstanding Chris Sinclair. Chris is the Vice President of Brand Boulevard, a Niagara-based company providing branded merchandise, which he co-founded in 2007 with business partner Sean Lichtenberger. Brand Boulevard was recognized as one of the greatest companies to work for and as one of the fastest growing Canadian companies. Chris also co-founded the Niagara Business Group Golf Marathon and Cycling Marathon charity events. While he may have started as a tractor-driving, cow-tipping country boy, Chris has since been recognized with a 40 Under 40 award, as well as a Niagara College Distinguished Alumni Award. In our broad conversation, we covered Chris's 4 pillars of leadership: how to attract and motivate younger employees, launching and running a business with a partner, and building epoxy river tables.
So welcome, Chris. It's great to have you join us here this evening, and we're thrilled to have you participate with us on our leadership journey. We'll be very excited this evening to learn about your leadership journey and all the particulars along the way. But let's start things off with just, a very high-level overview of where have you been and where are you going?
Who the heck am I? Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm honored, humbled to be on this too. So it means a lot, and I appreciate it. So I'll give you the quick background. So born and raised north of Owen Sound. You might be familiar with Wyerton, a little groundhog made it famous. So
Yep.
Farm boy from somewhere in between those two towns. Grew up in Owen Sound area. I came down to Niagara region for school. Took a marketing co-op program. I had a couple of great successes with co-op in high school, so I kind of knew. I was actually enrolled in golf management. Thankfully, that didn't pan out because golf was not going to pay the bills. And yeah, landed on a co-op in this industry that I'm in. So my company now, it's called Brand Boulevard. We are in the branded merchandise space. So swag, merch, corporate apparel, promotional products. My business partner and I, our office is based out of St. Catharines. We have about a team of 40 and growing. So I had a great experience working for another organization that was kind of a small player. I learned in many ways from a leadership standpoint what not to do, and I think over a 4-year period when financially it was just it was crumbling. If we took everything we learned and did the opposite, it probably still would have worked. And if not, we were going to write a book or make a movie or something. It could. There was a lot of interesting lessons learned at the age of, I think, 23 when we started up the organization. So. But it was an incredible experience, and we were very fortunate to have a lot of great mentors along the way. But yeah, that's the business I've come to know, and it kind of just sucks you in this industry, and it's got a lot of amazing people though. So I've been very fortunate and blessed to have an awesome career in that.
That's fantastic.
Chris, I've been very interested to ask you, partnerships. You and Sean are obviously a partnership, and it sounds like there's sort of more people in the fold, but my understanding based on the research that I've done is that this was sort of a brainchild between the two of you, right? And maybe there's a third individual, and I'm forgetting the name, but maybe talk to us about doing something like this, entrepreneurship, but not just you are launching your own thing, but you're working with others. Like, how does that work? How do you support each other? What are the benefits or even drawbacks?
Yeah, I think there's both. I think so when I was with the other organization, Sean had been there about a year and a half, and he was really the guy I looked up to as far as from a sales standpoint. He was 3 years older, so he really took me under his wing, and we became good buddies really quick. But eventually, it got to the point he was really the one that said, "Hey, like we got to do this. The timing's right. We can't keep doing this here." And just I think he, I know he believed in me, and I always looked up to him and admired. He was like a big brother in many ways. So he was there to make the jump. And so much has evolved and changed over the years. And I mean, partnerships are, incredible in the ways where you can celebrate together. You can, we did so much traveling together within a buying group we've been a part of, which is really just a group of incredible individuals that we can collaborate on and learn so much. So as two young guys knowing nothing, we jump on a plane and say, "Hey, we're coming to see you, teach us everything you know," and everyone took us in open arms. So going through some of the challenges together, what was, whether it's the blood, sweat, and tears, literally, sometimes just having that person there to vent, because there's conversations that, only the two of us could have. I couldn't have, whether that's compassion, empathy, talking about confidential or financial things. I mean, we literally went through what we would call our own version of a war together. It was a battle. So, arm in arm, those are the great parts. I mean, I think, like any relationship, whether it's a marriage or any partnership, there's a lot of challenges. When you're 50-50, it's, it took a lot of time to figure out who does what. And that really evolved over the years. It was pretty easy early on. It's like, okay, Chris, you seem to be the having better sales numbers, and I like operations and structure. So we kind of went and divided and conquered, and that was great. But then after, call it 10 years, I mean, I had a pivotal moment in my life, and I just said, like, I gotta be more than just the guy that's out doing business development and client relations. And I felt like I was working for my own organization, and those were difficult conversations to have. But because Sean and I were really, spent so much time, and he was able to allow me to be vulnerable and accept each other. I think there's always been the love there that allowed us to get through those difficult times. And I think the other thing too is both of us come from a very, very similar background, as far as didn't really, neither one of us had money. We're both kind of farm boys, but there was that humbleness. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you strip everything down and say, what are these two guys? It's that we were both humble, so we could have those conversations. And if either one of us had a big ego, the business, it was done probably 2017, 2016, 18, somewhere in there. So our roles and our relationship has continued to evolve. And I mean, even just this last year, getting, I think, with a little one on the way for me, coming now, it's 4.5 months old, my son, that really kind of I said, like, I want to get out of some of the day-to-day I'm doing. And again, he was there being supportive, saying, okay, well, I can be along that journey too. And also realizing that, our lives are a pendulum. So as much as, his kids are 7 and 4, and, I was maybe there some of the hours when he couldn't be, it's going to work the other way for me. And that, as long as we're both, having great communication, he'll always joke and say that I'll just push him into pure vulnerability, like just pull the tears out of him, or pull the heart to heart. He's more of that kind of, maybe not wearing his emotions on his sleeve like me, but we've been very fortunate to make it this long. It's been almost 15 years, and to still have that great friendship we do. So I'm very thankful that we've had that relationship, because it is not easy. And I think it's like, again, I equate it to a marriage. I'm almost 4 years married now, so I don't think that would have, I think that experience and having a business partnership equipped me so much better for my partner, for my wife's staff. It allowed me to just realize, how I communicate, where I need to show up, how I show up. And there's so many life lessons learned about a partnership.
Yeah, there's something freeing to be consistent in who you are, both in terms of your work experience and your personal experience. So I see the parallels in that. I mean, the way you describe it is like you derive a skill set of how to be a good partner, in the business world and the personal world, but it's a matter of the time and effort you put into it, and knowing that you're just a genuine human being who just occurs in that, with that interest and that commitment to being a good partner.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I just, when we talk about core values for us as an organization, it's we're not just looking for those core values about how someone shows up in the office. It's do they have those core values outside, and how do you find that? Because if you don't have integrity at home, and if you're someone that is, not faithful to a spouse, then can that just be turned off at the office? And when it comes down to writing a big deal or getting paperwork or something big, I don't think those can just turn off and on. I think you have them or you don't.
Yeah. I'm with you. Okay, maybe final question around Sean, because one thing I picked up reading about you guys is that he's really into Dale Carnegie. So it sounds like he's done pretty significant training in the Dale Carnegie world. So I'm wondering if any of that has rubbed off on you. So my knowledge of Carnegie, obviously he's huge, and the one book that I've shared with many people is How to Win Friends and Influence People, which a lot of people, like, they see the title and think, wait, what? This sounds very manipulative.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I'm just curious if if there's been any insights that you've gleaned from the Dale Carnegie rubbing off on you.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually took the course before he did. So
Okay,
yeah,
you gotta add that to
exactly.
your bio. You gotta add that to your bio.
Absolutely, yeah. Took Carnegie before Sean. So with the other business we'd worked for, one of the great things they did, and again, it was not all bad, but one of the great things, they hired on a consultant. He was the Niagara, really the guy that led a lot of the, I think, posted some of the best Carnegie numbers as far as enrollments and running the course. His name's Neil Thornton. He did that for years down here. So I was on my co-op. I think it was about $1,500, and my employer said, "You pay for the course. When you complete it, I'll give you half back." So I'm in school. I got debt up to my eyeballs. I'm making literally, I think it worked out to $4 an hour. Like my first full year with my co-op, I made $10,000. So at the time, I'm going, "There's no way I'm going to pay $700 or $1,500 and hope I get $750 back." But really, it was Neil and our employer that that kind of said, like, you're in or you're out, and commit to it. So taking that course was life changing. Just because of Neil, the program instructor, but there's so much talk about getting out of your comfort zone, and it evolved me as a human. Sean took the course, I think, shortly after. He actually got the highest achievement award in his, so he'll take that as his claim to fame. But I went back, and I was in the program. There's usually about 5 to 7 assistant coaches, and I went back and assistant coached the program. I think about 5 sessions, or if not 4 to 5 after. So it's a 12-week program. It's a huge commitment, but it kept it fresh for me, and it kept it sharp. And Peter, that when you talk about books, I mean, it is still, both Sean and I, that's one of the number one recommended books that we'll give to someone new, or just someone that says, "Hey, I'm looking for something to read. Have you read Dale Carnegie?" And the other piece of that, which is the double book, is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I mean, this stuff's timeless. Like his first book, I think, was 1915, and these books that he wrote later on, the stuff is absolutely timeless.
So Chris, you describe yourself as you're a self-proclaimed sponge. So you're big on learning. You like trying new stuff. I have here. You've done many activities: guitar. We got to chat about that in a second. Skeet shooting, golf, fishing, and cycling. I'm curious. During the past couple of years, I know you have a little one, so maybe this has slowed down a little bit. But any recent activities you've picked up?
Yeah, the one that was actually pre-COVID, but COVID was great for it. I started doing a little bit more woodworking. So I don't know if you've seen the epoxy river tables.
Yeah.
So you basically,
yes.
Yeah, you're taking like 2 pieces of wood, you build a frame, fill it with this really expensive epoxy that you can dye and color. So I mean, that for me, I made our boardroom table at the office in one of the rooms there. I mean, I love working with my hands. I grew up on a farm. My dad was also a mechanic. That was I call it his part-time 40 hours a week job. The man was insane. But anything that I learned, or any sort of skills that I have as far as with my hands, I picked it up from him along the way. So I find for me that it takes me away from everything. I will go in the garage and sanding, or pouring epoxy, and all of a sudden it's 4 or 5 hours have gone, and I haven't thought about a thing. I think it's just, for me, it's a form of meditation. So I think that's probably the main one. I always say I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. I mean, you talk about guitar, Peter. Do you play guitar?
I do. Yeah. I mean, again, with a little kid, not as well as I
Probably
used
not
to,
as
but
much.
used to be in a band. We used to play live. Like, yeah, it was a whole thing. It was a whole
Right on.
serious side gig. But these days, no.
My guitars have been great wall art for the last couple. Well, obviously, probably better part of years. But my nephew is 17. He was down on the weekend, or Thanksgiving weekend, and talk about someone who's mastered. He's played about 2 years now, and at one point he was playing 4 or 5 hours a day. Wow. He's on his second, if not his third, guitar teacher, because he's surpassed what they've been able to teach him. So, yeah, I'm just playing rhythm for him. I'm sitting there. It was a show. So yeah, talented kid though. Anyway, it inspired me to get back down and play a little bit more, because it's same sort of thing. It's time could just vanish, and it's very therapeutic for me.
And you'll want to do it for the little guy, right? So that'll pull you back in, because you'll be like, oh, so with my son, we get him a little drum set. I get some like electronic drums for myself, so he plays on those. He hears the amp. Like, I wanted to be exposed to stuff, whether he likes it or not. It's a whole other thing. But just it's in his world, so he knows what a guitar is. He can strum some strings and stuff. So that's been fun.
For sure. My brother, I come from a bit of a musical family, and I'm sure there's going to be a set of drums here from someone, if it's not us buying them, someone relatively soon. So.
So talk a little more about being present. Like, describe how that occurs for you. What do you do to be present?
The last probably year to 2 years, I've spent much more, I would say quite a bit more time than ever before on meditation and a little bit of work on spirituality. And I think that's been very helpful. Even going back to when I first started meditating, I think a lot of people will find, including myself, that just to sit for 2 minutes and do nothing is challenging. So, building up and building those muscles from a meditation standpoint, just to literally be present and not think about other things, that definitely I think helped me, getting to this point. It's still not easy. I think it's to me, I equate it to, it's very similar to, a healthy lifestyle, whether that be going to the gym or, working on a relationship. It's something that you can't just, work on for a couple weeks and say you've got it mastered. So both from my practice of meditation and also just being a father, it's a journey and it's work. And there's days where I catch myself being frustrated and I'm looking at the clock going like, my gosh, it's only 6:30. I got another 40. So the last weekend that just passed, that was a wonderful test and a beautiful experience. So my wife, it was her first weekend away and first night away, but 2 nights at a bachelorette party. And it was just amazing bonding time. So I had to kind of work myself up mentally, and I got my big list from my wife. Okay, here's how you do this, this. But it was great because it really just, I slowed down. Everything was shut off. I had no other agenda other than to just take care of this kid that totally relies on me. And it was a beautiful experience. It actually went by way faster than I expected. And there was challenging moments, but I mean, it's just, they just, as I said before, they just need you there. And I think, if I can kind of move that towards, leadership standpoint from in my business, sometimes that's what staff need. They just need you there, not to give answers, not to guide, not to push too much, but just someone to be there. And a lot of times that might be listening or just kind of sitting with them.
That's beautiful. The addiction to distraction, right? It can be really sort of dangerous. And I think you were just speaking about an infant. That's obviously, it's urgent, it's important. Everything just sort of clears away, right? Your focus is very, very clear. You know what you need to do, and the other stuff just falls off. But with staff, I guess it's more of a challenge, right? It's more of a challenge when, I think, Mike, earlier we were talking about, a phone is next to you as you're having conversation, and now that's this thing that could interrupt this engagement. So that's harder to sort of keep track of versus an infant that's screaming, and that's the only thing you got to do.
Yeah, these things have I think messed with us in a lot of ways, as much as they've done beautiful things to create connectivity and speed to business and the social element. But I think they've done more harm than they have help in a lot of ways. And I see it. We have a younger team, so our average age at our office, I've got about 40 staff. It's about 28, I think, at this point.
Wow.
And you see, and I mean, some of the things we put in play that probably don't realize it's definitely my business partner that is very structure focused, but we do not disturb times, and we call it focus time, especially on our sales, on the sales side of things. And it's literally saying cell phones in desks and emails off and do not disturbs on. And when we're doing our outbound business development activities, or just when every department needs to get things done, I just think it's not the norm. It's become the norm of what we do. But I'll even bug my wife sometimes at home, or I try to be mindful of it. But just the amount of times that they're right by us all the time. And I use the example because it was here, but one of the practices I've tried to put in play to help with me being present at home is when I get home, is the phone it stays in the bedroom when I change. And I can go back at 8 o'clock and I can check it at 9, but I'm not in a business where I require that kind of connectivity, thankfully. And I think that's just something where we rely on it. And I know for years it was just, I could not put the thing down. So I think it's something it's a challenge, but there's definitely a lot of freedoms when you can get used to just being okay with not having it right there.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I wanted to, if I could, follow up on. One, around listening. So we'll come back to that one in a sec, because this concept of, so your average age is around 28, it just seems to me extremely young. Like that, I mean, no matter how large an organization or small it is, that's a very young workforce, relatively speaking. And it's almost like they have to unlearn their social norms in the business environment, which, for example, like if you like, if they're amongst, if four of them go out for dinner, they don't talk that much. They're on the phone all the time.
Yeah,
They're at a table, four
for
people with
sure.
their phones going all the time, right? Okay, that's your choice. That's the way you live your life. But in the business environment, I mean, you can't be four people in a meeting all on your phone. I mean, you know, it's unless I guess you're texting to each other about the meeting. It's
Sure.
kind of like not a meeting anymore, right? Um, but the concept of moving from your social norm to your business norm isn't a new thing. That's not a new thing for younger people, because I remember when I, first went into the office, and there were certain way, and I was 28 years old when I, first went in the office, and there were ways that I approached my job, as a 28-year-old coming from the field and going into the office that were no longer acceptable whatsoever.
Hmm.
In the office it had to be, because it wasn't me just doing my thing anymore, or maybe interacting with a couple people. It was like, no, you're part of a team that has a collective, you know goal. Like, you have to achieve things together, and sometimes you're physically together and you're not, but I mean, so how is that going?
Great question. Um, I think you make a great point. I think in 10 years, 20 years, it'll be, the next generation will be saying the same thing. Oh, we have to teach this generation, whatever blank, about the way we do things. So I think you make a valid point that there's a lot of education going from not being in a professional corporate, call it, environment to then going into one. But, for us, culture has been the biggest piece of that. It was something that we've been really fortunate to be recognized in our industry for, but it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of really difficult decisions to get there, and it's ongoing. But we set out, and a lot of this was inspired from my form group through Entrepreneurs Organization, and I was very fortunate in 2014, I think, was when I started up. And I know Eric Simmons, who has spoke with you gentlemen.
Mhm.
He is in an existing group with me now. We're not part of EO, but the there's great exposure to that kind of environment.
Chris, the one thing I wanted to ask you, in terms
Yeah,
of hiring is hiring and retaining younger staff, right? I believe you gave a keynote speech on this topic, right? Because you guys have, like Mike mentioned, a very young staff, right? So part of it is Mike was sort of asking from the angle of, okay, what are the social norms that that group of individuals, their social life has that maybe in the office they don't, they need to sort of turn the dials down on. What I see from you guys, actually, you're sort of making a space for these individuals. You're meeting them where they are, in a sense, right? I think, in this great resignation that's happening, everyone's talking about, there's a lot of conversation about companies now need to pivot to become more open to the kinds of employees that are now coming, who are younger, who have come from a different place, right? So the old structure, the non-flexible model of you need to be a butt in a chair for 10 hours a day, like that kind of thing is out the door. People need purpose, people need flexibility, work-life balance. Like, there's a lot of other things happening. So you guys seem to have been very deliberate about creating a culture that accommodates people of that age. So maybe talk to us a little bit about how you guys have done that. What are the decisions you guys have made?
for sure. So it was 2015, I believe, when we set out and we created, I think not with the intention in mind, but we created our core values. And it was really just looking and saying, okay, here's 8 or 10 people that have been at this company for the last, since we opened, or for the longest term employees. And we looked and said, okay, what are their values? What do they value? Not just at the office, but what are their values at home? And through kind of that research, saying, what's our DNA makeup right now as an organization? We came up with our core values. And I think at first it was really because they looked good on the wall, and there was a bit of why behind it. But really, what happened is that when we realized some of the decisions that were going on in the office, there was a situation with a partner, and it's like, okay, they're not living this core value that's on the wall. Either we got to strip it off the wall in the main lobby, which is a lot of work because it was nicely hand painted there and cool graphic, or we have to make a really difficult decision. And there were a number of those. So that was probably a pivotal one where soon after, at the time, was an extremely hard conversation, an extremely difficult thing to go through. But you realize how much we were letting the team down by letting that action and that person be a part of the team still. So no one was saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened." They're going, "Okay, how do we move on? How do we just go forward?" So That's still something that it's in the blood of our company. We talk about our core values. We have, I'll call it a newsletter, but we use Slack, and we call it the brand stand. And my business partner, he's a great writer, but he'll write. It's basically a company update, but they're very authentic. They're very raw, and we're often going back to the core values and how this ties in with a tough decision that was made, or how this core value ties in with the growth mindset and where we're going as a company. So I think that's really shifted us. So going back to your question as far as teaching that younger group, the first thing we do as an organization is really try and vet out early on, even before they start, just to say, like, do they have these core values? So
Yeah.
is community something that's important to them? How can we find out if someone has integrity or not? It's difficult, even sometimes through a series of interviews, but we'll hire and fire quickly on living or not living those. And I think that's helped us keep some of that structure and really that core values to live on. And I don't think it's an age thing. I think people really respect that, and they know what we stand for, and we try and make that clear. And trust me, it is a nonstop. We constantly have to go back and say, hey, let's put more of this on. Let's go back to these core values. We can't just set it and forget it.
The impression I get is you have some really strong like cultural ambassadors coming out of your company. Like the people that work for you that have been there or even for some period of time really seem to stand by the values. Like it's me and this company is one and the same. So I'm really curious. You mentioned sort
Yeah.
of hiring, right? So because you guys have a fairly strong and unique culture, maybe share some tips, tricks, things that you guys have come across over the years to find the right candidates that will make this fit so that you don't have to go through the process of hiring. Of course, it's not 100% proof, but I'm sure you guys have gotten better at it over time. So how do you do it?
For sure, it's something that's evolving. I think every time we make one of those difficult decisions and we part ways with someone, we knew that 6 months ago, or we had that decision made. We just didn't have the courage to go with our gut. So as far as the hiring practices or policy, I mean, we're fortunate. We're based geographically out of Niagara region, so we have, I don't want to say the bars. There's just not as many companies. I mean, in our space, there's little to no companies the size what we're doing. We recently invested a ton of money into an entire new office space that's 4 times the size. I'll call it, a tech Google-ish like operation, but it's not for the looks and it was with intention. Angela from our team, who her role is marketing, but I mean, she was the GC on this project. She was from design to yelling at tradespeople to buying them coffees to executing. But her mission before any of this started was going to departments saying, what's important to you in a building? What kind of space do you need? What are the extra things that are, and with that list, she came out with a lot of collaboration and open space, private areas, lots of meeting rooms, a gym, a nice kind of lounge. And so again, these things, I think a lot of people look and go, oh, that's cool. They've got some of these fun things in the office, but all of it was done with intention. So um, being in an area like this where we can stand out a lot easier
Mhm.
from a talent pool. So a lot of I would say most of the hires that we're doing, they're coming from some sort of, I mean, rarely do we hire someone that doesn't know one, two, three, if not more people that already work at the
Mhm.
organization. So a lot of times they come vetted, or at least with some sort of, yeah, I know them, they're a good person, I went to school. It's interesting. One of the things, I'm a graduate of Niagara College, and for years, and I haven't done it in a number of years, but probably for 10 years in a row, I'm back to the program that I took. And I just said, listen, like, this is what I thought the world was going to be like. And I'll tell you, it was a slap in the face. And here's what you can expect. So I shared experiences, but there's a number of people, especially on the sales side, that come and say, hey, I remember when you spoke to my class in 2014, or you were there in 2012. And to me, it's rewarding. It wasn't why I was doing it, but yeah, and I think it's the benefit of being in a small community. We're less than 500,000 in the Niagara region, so we can stick out, which is selfishly one of the reasons why we did the new space that we had, not just for attraction but for retention too.
So, Chris, I
Yeah.
have maybe one more question just about the culture at Brand Boulevard, because I think you guys
Yeah,
do some pretty interesting stuff, and this maybe speaks to more rewarding people on your team. So I think you guys do some pretty tremendous stuff there. So maybe tell us, let's get into that conversation by telling us about the $1 million dinner. What is that, and how does that work?
absolutely. So that's the $1 million dinner is one of our sales incentives. So for our industry, I mean, I think across the board in North America, the average sales per rep is maybe 400,000. It might even be lower. The bar's pretty low in our industry in a lot of ways. I don't mean that in a in a negative way, but one of the things we've done is early on we had a couple great producers, and we wanted to create this just sort of I guess a milestone and an achievement, but really celebrate it, because it's easy to say, okay, we've just got a bunch of reps that do a certain amount of sales. So when we created this, it's probably 7+ years ago. $1 million generally took from kind of history and data of people doing it. It took about 4 years to get there on your own. It was a big achievement. It required lots of sacrifice, as far as it wasn't a 40-hour-a-week job to get there. And we wanted to celebrate that. So our big annual event used to be in Toronto. So we pick Highs has always been the spot that we go back to. And it's a great steakhouse. And then they've got the new location now, but it's just about celebrating. So that's a milestone for sales. We have a number of different sales milestones. We now have a platinum club. We have some other ones. So they're generally based. We've done some cool trips down south, and we rented a massive cottage a couple years ago. So COVID put a damper on some of those, but I think across the board we're constantly just looking for ways to recognize and celebrate the wins that our team is doing. So it's something that we've, I think, done a good job of, but we're pouring a lot more in. We had our leadership retreat with our team. There was 8 of us 2 weeks ago. We spent 2 days, and that was really a topic of conversation, saying all these great things that we used to do for internal events and recognizing just having fun as an organization on top of, because the underlying thing that most people don't see when they look at us on social media or they come through and they're like, man, you guys have a ton of fun. What a great company to work at. But they don't see all the incredible work and the long hours and the dedication that goes in the background. So in a lot of ways, sometimes the culture or the perceived culture has hurt us. And we've cycled through a few people going, oh, this is way harder than I didn't realize how hard these people work. But we're ramping up and we're doubling down on some of those achievements and just ways to celebrate, because it can go all of a sudden, you keep setting the bar higher and higher, and it's very easy to just have oversight on some of the great achievements along the way, both small, medium, and large. So one of the things that I think our company does really, really well is we use Slack. And even though we have 95% of our people in the office, for the most part, again, geographically, we have a lot of people that are living local. But it's just constant celebration on milestones and sales. I mean, this time of year, it's busy, it's crazy. I mean, we've got one of those sales bells, and it's cheesy, but people love it. And it's other people posting saying, hey, Tanner he just closed this deal, and here's why it's a big deal. Or here's why it's important to him. So it's created this culture of celebration, not just saying, hey, look what I did. It's saying, look what my colleague did. I'm really proud of them. So that's something that we're proud of. And we're hiring some more. We've hired a support in marketing. We've got another one coming, and just ramping up our internal and external events to go back to, I think, what we did a really good job of for a number of years. I think a lot of people, when they hear leadership, they immediately equate it to business. And I think, to me, I almost put it into 4 quadrants. So yes, there's business leadership, and this is what I do for my 9 to 5 or my job. But I think it's easy to put a lot of efforts there, and especially as an entrepreneur, as anyone in business, that becomes more and more for most people, like really their life. And that was me for the longest period of time. And I think, a kid, a wife, all these changes in my life has really refocused a lot of those things. But when I talk to my team too, I talk about the other 3 being community leadership. So community could be your church, your neighbors, your charities you're involved with. Is what are you doing in that pod? So the other one being family. How are you leading in family? And you don't have to be the oldest, the highest on the food chain or whatever. Family leadership comes into play, and I think that's something I'm noticing more at 39. Is okay. The things are shifting. My parents are aging. Our kids are coming up under. So how does that family leadership change, or what are the opportunities to lead as a family? And not just here as in a greater family. And then the other one is leadership on health. And I think that's an area where just too many times I've seen people, they don't put enough in that bucket. And how many times have we seen someone just like this, the lack of time, effort, or just attention that isn't put to health. The rest of it doesn't matter. Without health, we have nothing. And I'm a big advocate of that with our team. And that was one of the reasons I think, I'm so excited about having a fitness facility at our organization. That's the last piece that's opening literally in hopefully weeks. Because when I see the people that I know, with kids at home and a busy schedule, is that workout for them during the day will, I know selfishly the ROI is going to be massive, but for
Mm.
them is what it does in between, in between their ears is personal. It's changed my life. So I think, when I talk to our team and in presentations again, I've talked about let's not forget those other three, because it's easy to talk about business and it's easy to become a big focus. But when those things are lacking, they're not always going to be equal. But usually when one's up here, there's probably one or two that are down here. So just making sure that I'm constantly, for me, is am I checking this box? So do I need maybe a little bit more effort at home, and do I got to spend some more time and really conscious effort there, or being present there? Or when my health is way up, maybe my business needs a little bit more attention. So kind of looking again, a pendulum is, it's never going to be exact across those four categories, but if I can consciously put effort, I think I know for a fact it's helped me, and it just creates better balance for me in life.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I
I'm
really
glad
like
we
that.
asked the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? One follow-up on that. So if I'm thinking of you as a leader, and this is the message you're giving to the people on your team, how do you want that to be perceived, Chris? How do you want people to think of you as the leader in this organization? What are the words you would hope they use when they describe you?
The first one that comes to mind is authentic. I want them to know I'm real. I want them to know I speak from the heart, because that's where I think that's what I'm known for. I know it's what I'm known for based on feedback and organization. I want them to know I care, because it's just, I think really good teams, and this is easy. We've got 40 people. We don't have 400 people, but I want them to know, as that team builds out, is that that focus has to be taught down all the different levels of leadership with our team. Is let people know that we give a shit ultimately, because if they're making a sacrifice, and call it, a third of their day is coming to help you and to help achieve our goals and your goals. So I want them to know, like, I care. And then the final piece is they gotta have fun. I've said, like, the minute if I'm going in and like if I'm not having fun 4 days a week out of 5 or 3, like, it's got to be a 80 plus. I'm out. I'm done. I don't care. I'll go, like, I'll probably work on a construction site. I mean, if I could run an excavator, or again, that's maybe the farm background, but I think again, it's something I'm passionate about. It's not always going to be fun, and maybe everyone's day to day is not going to be that. But I think for the amount of time people spend at work, and the amount of commitment they have, I think having fun is so important for me, and just keeping it light. It doesn't have to be so damn serious, because it's easy to get caught in that.
Let's do it. Rapid fire. You ready, Chris?
Bring it on. I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. If someone wrote a biography of your professional journey to date, what would be the title?
Ooh, great question. The best is yet to come.
Ooh, nice. I like that.
Didn't somebody have that?
No, that's mine.
It doesn't.
They can't. It's probably it's a generic statement, but
I'll go back.
No, but
I
yeah,
love it.
that's really
love
good. It's very forward looking. I think we've had a few that are sort of journey today. They sort of say, here's what's happened. It's sort of past until
Yes.
you're actually saying, whatever, here's where I'm going. That's
yeah.
really cool.
It's only
Yeah,
getting better.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Chris, if this biography of yours gets turned into a movie, who's playing you in the starring role?
No, only because I'm like so into Ted Lasso right now. It's got to be Jason Sudeikis.
Oh, that's a good choice.
He's just most of his stuff. You just feel good when you watch it, and like
Yes.
one of my missions, I want people to feel good after. I think a lot of people when they meet me or after conversation, they're like, "Yeah, that guy's pretty funny. He's all right."
He's,
He's not the funniest, but yeah, I love Jason Sudeikis. He's awesome.
Oh,
he's
that's a
your
good
funny
choice.
buddy.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. You want to meet the guy and get to know him.
Yeah.
That's a great choice. Okay. Now, because I read about a guitar in your background, this one should be easy for you, but let's try it. If you're going to write a theme song or an anthem about leadership, if you were to write the chorus line that's going to get repeated over and over as a important message to leaders, however you define leadership, what do you think that message should be? What should be that chorus line in that song?
It would be lead with your heart.
Love it.
Okay. So we actually touched on this already. So we talked about books that you've most often gifted. So you listed Dale Carnegie. Are there other books, Chris, that you've often gifted to friends, colleagues, employees, people who you're mentoring, perhaps?
Absolutely. There's two that I can think of top of mind that I've ordered. Like I literally order them in 6 at a time. Jay Shetty is Think Like a Monk.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Brilliant.
just full of great, like again, a feel good. You're like, I can use this every day. It's very practical. I think he's done a great job on his podcast. He interviewed Will Smith, and it was one of the best interviews I think I've ever listened to. It was so good. The other one that it's so incredible, and it just keeps bending my mind, and I have it on audio in my car just constantly because it probably is going to take 400 times for me to read it. Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. He just it's a little bit of spirituality, but he just talks about, first of all, like the first 10 pages are about that voice in our head that we've had as far back as we can remember, and just this constant chatter. He talks about living, the true conscious self and being able to step back. So when something highly emotional happens, is to be able to go like, yeah, I feel it, it's okay, and go through, and to kind of be the observer in all this. And it gets very deep, but it's still very practical. So it's just like you can't read it once. You got to read it more than once. So that one I'm giving a lot of people. It's that was again a recommendation from my spiritual journey friend that's changed my life in many ways. His name's Dimitri Butrin.
Very cool.
Okay, so final question for you, Chris, and this is the rapid round is over. Now it's, where can people find you? If someone wants to follow up with what you're doing, what Brand Boulevard is doing, where can they find you online?
So our website's one of the easiest ones because there's great team profiles, brand BLVD like boulevard.ca. You'll have all my contact information there. And then social, I'm literally down to, actually LinkedIn is probably the best ways from a professional standpoint to contact. And then social, I've whittled down to Instagram only. So it's brand BLVD_Chris. I'm pretty easy to track down.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. So
you're welcome. Thank you guys.